camera.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Margot.
Hello. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. I am Lee Camp, joined by the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield. By the never amazing Eleanor Goldfield.
You're such an asshole.
Welcome, everybody. Per usual, we got a lot of news to cover, a lot we're going to get into. We're going to start off with the shooting at diplomats, because I did not get to cover that. No?
It's not shooting at diplomats, Lee. It's warning shots
Right.
near
Sorry.
diplomats.
It's according to Israel, it was just warning shots of diplomats. I'm going to show this version of the video first and then go to the other one. Nope. He skipped over the bang. All right. Nope. Okay. Now you've seen the whole video. Now we're going to show the BBC version, which is a little different, more from the diplomats angle, I think. But this is in the West Bank, by the way.
Janine.
Yeah.
هون آمن هون آمن دير بالك السيارة ما تخليه في الوجه.
So that's the diplomats kind of ducking into the cars to get out of the way of the warning shots, as you so correctly said.
Warning shots. Well, you have to. Did you show the headline
Of the BBC article?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
Okay. I think it's worth just seeing it in print.
It says Israel fires warning shots near diplomats in the West Bank.
It's a hell of a way to say shot at international diplomats.
The
police shot warning shots near the suspect and then shot him?
Do you think they'd provide Hamas the same grace if Hamas fired near someone?
So yeah, this is just another example with Auntie Eleanor about critical media literacy and recognizing how fakaked it is to phrase something that way when you literally have the IDF shooting at international diplomats. These are international diplomats. If you go back to your favorite page, the Instagram, and
yeah, I'm working on it. Keep talking.
Because you can see the responses from some of these foreign ministries. For instance, Italy summoned Israel's ambassador in Rome for clarification.
Could you clarify the time you shot at us?
Yeah, saying, quote, the threats against diplomats are unacceptable, end quote. Canada.
And summoned to Global Affairs. We expect a immediate explanation of what happened. It's totally unacceptable. It's some of many things that are totally unacceptable that's going on in the region.
Oh, there's something else in the region that is unacceptable.
I like how you phrase that, like unacceptable things happening in the region. It's like if one house on your block was just massacring people in the basement, and you're like, there are some unfortunate things happening on this block in general.
In general, there's something. So there's one guy who hasn't trimmed his lawn recently. There's another guy who's murdered 17 people. But just in general, there's some bad things on this block.
I don't want to name names.
Yeah. And that was Canada's new banking president, new prime minister who former head of the Bank of Canada.
Turkey, the foreign ministry said, quote, this attack, which endangered the lives of diplomats, is yet another demonstration of Israel's systematic disregard for international law and human rights, end quote, which is a hell of a thing coming from Turkey.
Warning shots do not endanger lives. They're intended to be helpful, Eleanor.
I agree. France Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said that Israel's ambassador to France would be summoned. So they're summoning their ambassador.
There's a lot of summoning.
There's a lot of summoning.
Yep.
Spain, which is already doing good work with regards to Israel, also summoned the head of the Israeli embassy in Madrid. So the question is, of course, what does the summoning even matter? At this point, not much. And I think the fact that also, the way that the BBC is spinning it, you don't see this on really mainstream, corporate outlets here in the United States. And I think that, so basically and the New York Times, the headline they ran with was, Israeli soldiers fire into the air. And it's like, well, don't all shots travel through air? What atmosphere are you in?
Well,
What a way to put it.
But would you imagine if Hamas shot at diplomats? Do you think anyone would be like, Hamas fired into the air in the general vicinity? No, they'd be like, Hamas tried to kill diplomats. That's what it would say.
And here's the thing. I'm not saying we should cover this because I think the lives of diplomats matter any more than anybody else, like than the unhoused person around the corner.
2% more, maybe?
No.
Okay.
Oftentimes 2% less, but that's a separate political conversation. The point is that this is considered, like, when you shoot at diplomats, that is considered an act of war. So technically, Israel just like declared war on Turkey, China, France, Spain, Canada, all at once.
Could you imagine if they had some sort of delineation where they're like, okay, if you shoot at diplomats, if it's within a foot of them, that's fine. That's like a hello. It's a rough hello. But if you get closer than that, then no, it doesn't matter. You shot at diplomats.
Yeah. And so this is just another one of those examples where, and I have to recommend my own show for a second. I spoke to Armenian human rights lawyer Carnegie Kirkonian on the Project Censored show this week.
Wow, you had that name memorized. That was awesome.
Well, he's a great guy. And he talked about how when someone with genocidal intent experiences the impunity with which the world treats Israel, or indeed Azerbaijan with regards to Armenia, they become not only like they don't just take it as like, oh, okay. They take it as an acceptance and a support for what they're doing. So they don't just continue with what they were doing, they ramp it up. So this idea that like Israel continues to do such terroristic acts on top of itself, becoming more sadistic, even when you didn't think it was possible. And then doing things like this that really show a complete lack of understanding, or care rather, of international law and diplomacy, because that's exactly what the world has shown them. The world has shown them all of these countries listed here. Spain a little bit less.
You notice which one's missing on there?
What? Oh,
the United States.
I mean, there are lots of countries.
I mean, of the main ones that people talk about. The United States not condemning the shooting at diplomats. Not worth condemning.
So yeah, like Ireland has spoken out against Israel, but like overwhelmingly the world has said, yep, carry on. So then why would Israel care that it's shooting at diplomats? Why would that make a shit bit of difference? Because the world has shown no interest in trying to stop Israel. So it becomes, when you give people with genocidal intent this kind of impunity, don't be surprised when they take advantage of that impunity. And so I think that is a really important thing to bring up. It's a really important thing to bring up how this is being spun in the media, how it's not being discussed in the media. Yeah.
And I think it just speaks to how Israel totally thinks they can do anything. I mean, and the fact that they've been able to perpetrate genocide for 18 months and can get away with it is the sign to them that they're free to do anything, fire at diplomats. And of course, why would they not? Why do they want to scare diplomats? Why do they do the West Bank? Because they don't want any coverage, any news, any understanding of what the situation is in these regions. It's the same reason they're assassinating journalists on a daily basis. They killed 5 just the other day, in one day, in Gaza. And so it's very similar reasoning behind it. It is, we do not want people who can get the word out, people who might have some power to stop us. We don't want them here. So let's scare them. Let's get them out of here.
Do you want to do the Mondo Weiss thing since we're already on the topic? Or did you have a different run of show that I'm unaware of?
Yeah, okay, we can do it. Let's do Mondo Weiss first. And then we might leave the topic of Israel and maybe come back later. I'm trying to break things up so that my shows, they always seem to be about 45 minutes Israel. And then
Oh, well
15.
then, okay. I thought you wanted like continuity of topic, but if you don't,
I do not care for any continuity. No, I'm kidding.
well then fight. Let's bounce around.
No, I want to do it. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, now.
You're like, now I'm just out of the flow. It's all over. I'm leaving.
So this is a piece by Mondoweiss. They do great work. Please check them out. This one's titled "Israel's Aid Plan for Gaza is a Key Part of Its Strategy to Expel Palestinians." And I'm going to get into the historic connection to the United States, but I first want to just share a little bit about what that means. So basically the plan is this: to starve Gaza's population and then only create one designated flattened stretch of land where they can come to get food rations, facilitated by the Israeli army and run by a U.S. private contractor. Isn't it nice when people can work together?
Yeah, we also covered that story
that
about
too.
U.S. contractors on the ground in Israel. Oh, I thought we weren't going to have boots on the ground. Oh, well, it doesn't count as boots on the ground because they don't
contractors.
Well, they don't have camouflage on, so that's really the only difference.
Gaza's population will be forced to go to these collection points where they will be corralled inside basically what's a concentration camp inside a concentration camp, located in what used to be the city of Rafah, which is now a flattened wasteland. Netanyahu made all this clear in his latest announcement, which came a day after Israel said it would allow minimal amounts of humanitarian aid into Gaza simply for diplomatic reasons, i.e. they don't want to get war crime charges, which you already have, and images of famine, which you also already have. So on Tuesday of this week, the UN said that 9 trucks that Israel allowed to enter the day before represented a drop in the ocean of the needs of the devastated population.
9 trucks. You might recall that like a few weeks ago, we talked about the minimum number of trucks to feed Gaza on a daily basis was in the hundreds. It was somewhere around 200, might have been a little less.
I think it's like 300 actually.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere in the 200s was the number they were giving. And Israel was, this is way back, was letting in 67 a day, which is still not enough. So they let 9 trucks in. Oh, and some of them, I remember reading some of the 9 trucks didn't have food in them. They had like shawls.
No, shrouds.
So it's
Burial
like,
shrouds.
Yeah, well, but the point is 9 trucks isn't going to cut it, and half, or some of them don't have food in them.
So, and people are seeing the placement of this in like this concentration camp within a concentration camp in Rafah, or what used to be Rafah. Most analysts see this as a preparatory step for forcing Palestinians out. It's believed that this new plan to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza might be the last piece of this strategy. So basically the on Thursday, which was yesterday, we're filming this on Friday, May 23rd, the Gaza government media office announced that some trucks arrived in the strip for distribution 3 days after they were due. Still not enough. International organizations, including UN bodies such as UNRWA and the World Food Program, have traditionally been key players in aid distribution, but now they're not going to be. And of course, these international bodies are like, well, that's super suspicious. And also speaks to the fact that you're not interested in humanitarian aid. This is part of a bigger plan to ultimately move, forcibly ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinians. So with that, I also want to take us down a little trip down history lane here in the United States.
Oh, trip down history lane.
And just mention that
Did you know history lane was built in 1632?
In 1864, the United States adopted a scorched earth policy in order to burn Navajo homes and crops and to steal or kill their remaining livestock, forcing them into starvation and thereby forcibly ethnically cleansing them from their lands. The initial 18-day, 300-mile journey led to the deaths of at least 200 Navajo men, women, and children. These are called the Long Walk. Basically, what they did was they forced the Navajo into specific areas where they said they would get food and then confined them there. This is a And it's not that it was just done with the Navajo. This is, or Dene. Like, I'm not saying like this was something. The Trail of Tears was the Cherokee. But so again, this is not something that was just done with a single tribe or
Right.
a single indigenous people. I'm just using this Navajo example because it is like almost copy paste of what Israel is doing. So I think it's really important to recognize where these ideas come from. I mean, people like to point out that, for instance, Hitler got a lot of ideas from the United States. That's true. He also got a lot of ideas because he was growing up at the time that Europe was violently, genocidally colonizing Africa.
Yeah.
Do you think he might have picked up on some of that growing up in that environment where you are free to genocide those you deem lesser than just for shits and giggles and to make the world a quote unquote better place without those dirty savages? I mean, this shit is just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So I think it's important to recognize where these ideas are coming from, and thereby also recognize why the U.S. would always naturally be the associate, the co-conspirator with somebody like Israel, because the U.S. did this shit. It's like part of our foundation of this U.S. empire, both domestically and in foreign areas. So of course, when you see history as happening today, then you understand why all this makes sense.
Well said. And I, in a few minutes, I'm gonna talk about that in a second. In a few minutes, I'm gonna talk about how I think part of the reasoning that right now Trump and Elon Musk and some others are trying to say that there's a genocide being committed against the white people in South Africa is to kind of like change the conversation around the word genocide away from just Israel genociding Palestinians and saying, oh, no. Anyway, we'll get to that more in a moment. But thank you so much for the super chats, which Circle Home says feel unwelcome today. I'm not sure why. Because I didn't say I do not frown upon super chats. Is that you were trying to trick me?
They're always welcome.
Circle Home was trying to bait me into saying I do not frown upon super chats.
Why is that your thing?
Yes, I say it a lot. Yeah.
Oh.
I do not frown upon super chats. James, thank you so much for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Much love and solidarity.
He wrote, "Never forget Wounded Knee."
And he wrote, "Never forget Wounded Knee." Sometimes I forget this is also a podcast, and so we need to
so people can't say
those things.
Yeah.
Real quick, I would like to talk about our sponsor of the show today, which is Chapter, a free Medicare services and advice and for Medicare and Medigap and Medicare Advantage. So if you are 65 years old or older, or your parents are, and you're in the United States, this can be incredibly helpful to you. Again, it's free. 96% of people who use Chapter then come back the following year to use it again. Seniors have historically saved over $1,000 a year using Chapter. Chapter has near perfect reviews online and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau, and it's free. So check out Chapter. See if it's right for you or your parents. You can either go to askchapter.org/camp. My last name is a way to give this show credit for the recommendation. You can also call 757-349-8232. That's 757-349-8232. And tell them Lee sent you. And we'll put that all in the description as well. Free Medicare advice, because there's 24,000 plans. So it's like incredibly difficult to figure out what would be best for you. So that's why they exist. Okay, let's keep moving. And we might end up talking a little more about Israel later. And by the way, if you're wondering why we haven't mentioned the 2 Israeli embassy workers that were killed yesterday, or I guess technically 2 days ago, I did a whole breaking... We don't need to. I did a whole breaking news segment. Well, apparently I needed to yesterday, but we no longer need to. I did a breaking news thing on it on yesterday. So you can go watch that. It's 15, 20 minutes long, and it's just on that topic. So we're not going to redo it all again. Thank you, Big John over on Rumble, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. And Big
Anybody
John
else singing Johnny Cash's Big John in their head right now, or is that just me?
Who knows? We'll have to ask the chat. Big John says, thanks, Lee and Eleanor. Thank you, Big John. What was the name of Robin Hood's dude? Is it Little John.
So the opposite.
The
But the
opposite.
joke was that he was big. Huh?
So does that mean Big John is tiny?
If he's following in that
tradition?
In that tradition, yes.
All right. Since I mentioned before the break, let's just get this out of the way, and then we're going to get to Trump's big, beautiful bill that is a giant giveaway to the rich.
Can I just quickly say that I was once accused of white genocide because I was dating a black man? Even though we didn't procreate, I was just once accused of that, which was really hilarious.
Excuse me, question.
Yes,
what the fuck does the word genocide mean? Because
exactly,
that's not it.
Exactly. I am apparently somehow responsible for a white genocide because I was on a date with a black dude.
So at a first date I mean,
it wasn't a first date, but yeah.
No, I'm just asking. At a first date, is a black person supposed to say, if we continue to date, it's genocide? I just need you to know that.
I mean, I think you should. It's nice.
Okay.
It's nice to alert
get it out
people
there
to this problem.
That's true. Fair. So Trump had, and I'm thankfully not going to play any of the video. Trump had the president of South Africa in the Oval Office and used it to ambush him. Basically accusing him, or at least accusing the black people in South Africa of committing genocide against the white South Africans. And he, said it over and over again that it's a genocide. The South African leader, who's a protege of Nelson Mandela, apparently remained quite calm, Ramaphosa.
I'm so impressed whenever somebody can be totally calm when they're dealing with such dumb shittery. It is remarkable.
Apparently, a lot of people were expecting like another Zelensky moment of people yelling at each other in the Oval Office, but he did not give into it. And he was also one of the key mediators in the talks that ended apartheid in 1994. So I think he just looked over at Trump. He's like, dude, the shit I've faced, you're nothing.
You're nothing.
You're nothing. But anyway, Ramaphosa afterwards said they got along fine behind the closed doors. It was just in the, what was presented to the media was Trump, lambasting him for the case of that there's a genocide against white people. There's a theory amongst the right wing that there's been a systematic persecution and quote unquote genocide of white South Africans using disinformation to support his allegations. He showed a video. Trump's like a third grade teacher or something. It's like wheels out his projector. He's like, okay, we're going to watch this now. He misrepresented a video showing a protest where people placed white crosses in a field to commemorate a farmer and his wife who were murdered in a 2020 home robbery. And he and many others have said it's a burial site. So that they're trying to claim all the white crosses represent deaths. But South African news site News 24 has said there are actually no bodies on the site, and the number of crosses have no relation to the number of killings. It was one family that was murdered in a robbery. So there's a bunch of crosses out there because a bunch of people came and put crosses out there. That does not mean it was a bunch of people killed. It was
just put a bunch of crosses.
You can put a bunch of crosses in a field. It's not, Trump also played clips of two controversial South African opposition politicians who in no way speak for the government. And they have like 9% of the vote. So they're like a relatively tiny party. And these two opposition leaders were singing songs from the struggle against apartheid, including one that's called Kill the Boer, which means Afrikaner or farmer. So
not like a wild boar.
Yeah. So these small party that have no power in government were singing this song. And in fact, one of the main ones was taken to court on charges of hate speech for singing the song at rallies. And the Constitutional Court ruled, similar to how it hopefully would rule in America, that the song was protected by freedom of speech. What? Trump later handed Ramaphosa a bunch of printed articles that he said showed death, horrible death, because Trump doesn't know how sentences work. News outlets in South Africa, as well as French news agency, studied the articles and found some were from partisan blogs, so basically anybody writing whatever they wanted, and unsubstantiated online sources. One article Trump held up saying it was about white farmers being burned was in fact about the Democratic Republic of Congo. Hey, they all look the same. It doesn't matter, right? You can just hold up stuff about any country.
So was Was he trying to say that there's a white genocide in Congo?
No, he was trying to claim it was South Africa.
Oh.
He was holding them up saying, look, these farmers were burned and it had nothing to do with South Africa.
Okay.
So they have no way to actually support their case, and instead they just have to hold up all this fake stuff. I mean, it's pretty funny. Also, I think part of the big reason for this is the word genocide across the world right now is being used about Israel on Gaza. And if they can kind of rebrand it so that all of a sudden you say genocide and people start thinking about South Africa against white people, that's good for them. And so
also, Katie Kane wrote, somebody should have hacked in some Gaza footage. I'm just saying, I do not think that this is a good idea. I do not think anyone should do this.
Eleanor does not support hacking. In fact, she frowns upon hacking.
But like, if somebody knew how to hack into like CNN or MSNBC or Fox News and like insert a la Fight Club images of what's really going on the ground in Gaza, I would think that that would not be a good idea. And I would definitely frown upon anybody who would be able to have that technical ability to do that.
So no. Don't do it. You can keep talking. I'll keep doing this. No. Do not let it happen. We are opposed. Absolutely
I'm
opposed.
serious. I'm opposed.
Very opposed. Also, if you do like Fight Club and just put penises in, we're fine with that too.
Actually, that's fair. It's just less useful for humanity.
Yeah, I don't know quite what it would do for humanity, really.
But if you do want to make soap out of the fat that what did he say? I'm selling people's fat back to them.
Fat asses back to them or something.
I find that kind of fun.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there's a lot in Fight Club's worth it. But okay, we're gonna move on to Trump's big, beautiful bill.
That's seriously what it's called, y'all. Like, I literally thought, when I first heard somebody say it, I was like, that's dumb. And they're like, that's legit what it's called. It's like the red, white, and blue land.
You think it's an onion, Ellen?
No, you do. You're like, nobody would actually say these words seriously.
Thank you. Denise in the chat. It is idiocracy. It's full on idiocracy.
Dude, idiocracy looks like a philosophical tome compared to where we're living right now. Like,
here's all you need to know about how accurate idiocracy was. When they were filming it, they had zero money. The costume director was like, I need to find a way to make it look like this guy's dressed in some sort of weird, futuristic, but dumb clothing that feels like it's the future, but feels stupid at the same time. I'll put him in this bizarre, colorful, foamy footwear that like no one had ever heard of called Crocs. And so he wears Crocs to the whole movie. Big, I think bright orange Crocs to the whole movie in order to look dumb and futuristic.
I didn't know that. That's a piece of this is like some good barroom trivia.
Good trivia. That and the fact that Abraham Lincoln was almost at the Donner Party.
Hey, I gave that to you. Thank you. Abraham Lincoln was almost in the Donner Party.
Yes.
Which I feel like the word party is a little inappropriate.
That's my line.
It is?
Oh, I
haven't listened to you.
I use that line about 4 times.
I've always had an issue with that word because no other time in history when there's just like a giant cannibal event do we call it a party.
Usually it's called a festivity. But Eleanor never listens to government secrets.
That's not true. You've never listened to Project Sentinel.
It's not true either. I make that joke a few times. Like, why party? And it's one letter off from dinner party. Come on. You're just
oh my God, that's so true.
Trying. It's total simulation. Thank you, JG, for donating memberships. Much support.
Jazz Hand said it's called a buffet. That's true. Not a party. It's a buffet.
Buffet. Should have been the Donner Buffet. Totally. If you want more fun facts about the Donner Party, I did them on this last episode of Government Secrets. But okay, I am actually going to play, I don't normally do this, a 1-minute clip from someone speaking in front of Congress where I'm like basically agreeing with what he's saying. This is, I don't even know which one this was, but this is a Democrat trying to...
I don't even know who this guy is.
Yeah, I don't know. Most of them, I don't care. But he's talking about the bill. This is just before it passed. It has passed the House, by the way. I think most people know that. But anyway.
At like midnight or something.
Tell the American people, we can cut your taxes.
Sorry.
Oh, God, Jesus.
I was listening to it fast.
It stresses me out so much.
Well, I'd love to stand here and tell the American people, we can cut your taxes and we can increase spending and everything's going to be just fine. But I can't do that because I'm here to deliver a dose of reality. This bill dramatically increases deficits in the near term, but promises our government will be fiscally responsible 5 years from now. Where have we heard that before? How do you bind a future Congress to these promises? This bill is a debt bomb ticking. Congress can do funny math, fantasy math, if it wants, but bond investors don't. And this week, they sent us a message.
Sorry.
Moody's downgraded our credit rating, and the bond investors who buy our debt and finance our debt demanded higher interest rates on the 10-year note, the 20-year note, and the 30-year note. What does this mean? Very soon, the government will be paying $16,000 of interest alone per U.S. family. And what are we telling them? Instead of taking care of that problem, we're going to give you a $1,600 tax break. Under the taxing and spending levels in this bill, we're going to rack up, the authors say, $20 trillion of new debt over the next 10 years. I'm telling you, it's closer to $30 trillion of new debt in the next 10 years. Mr. Speaker, we're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic tonight. We're putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg. If something is beautiful, you don't do it after midnight.
Oh,
I disagree with that.
Oh dear.
I disagree with that last part.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly, sir.
The last part, what he meant was they're trying to pass it in the middle of the night. But I think most beautiful things happen after midnight.
I mean, come on, Judas Priest had a whole song called "Living After Midnight." Like it
is quite possible Rep Massey has not been late.
I think he might be a virgin.
Yeah.
Also, I just like to say, like, I do like the deck chairs on the Titanic thing, but here's the problem. I think in that metaphor, it's already after the iceberg.
The iceberg's done.
The issue is like you're sinking, and the only thing you're doing is rearranging deck chairs.
Right,
because if you haven't hit the iceberg yet, it's totally fine to be fucking about
with
rearranging deck chairs.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
so I have a lot of problems with the last few sentences this guy said.
However, I should have said he's a Republican. He's not a Democrat because Democrats have never said anything correct. So there's like two Republicans that sometimes stand up for something. Anyway, God,
nothing beautiful ever.
Nothing beautiful happens after midnight. Anyway,
I'd say that's true about Congress, but nothing beautiful happens in Congress at any time.
Anyway, I agree with most of what he's saying, but of course, he can't add in there. They're not legally not allowed to talk about the petrodollar, which as the world de-dollarizes, this debt that the U.S. has, which has kind of been meaningless because we just print however much we want, this debt will suddenly have a lot of power because you can't print however much you want anymore. But anyway, Trump's bill is a giant giveaway to the rich.
Would you like to go to Stephen Semler for
that's what we're doing.
Visual aid?
Yes, I would.
So yet again, Stephen Semler doing the work that none of us have the stomach for and making graphs, which none of us have the math for. So it says that there's roughly $1 trillion in spending cuts, which doesn't come close to offsetting the $3.8 trillion loss in government revenue from its tax breaks. And guess what, folks? The tax breaks really don't go to you and me. They go to the likes of Bezos and Zuckerberg. And
massive tax giveaway, tax breaks for the richest people in the world.
And so I'm just going to go through this really quick, but I recommend that folks check out Stephen Semler's Substack. You can just go to stephensemler.com, and he puts this out in really simple ways so that econ idiots like myself can understand it. Please share it out because this shit was not shared, of course, on corporate media, the realities of the situation. So
let's go through some of these.
The ways and means.
Well, the committee doesn't matter.
Okay. So a 3% income boost for the wealthy because they need it. It adds $3.8 trillion to the deficit.
Does anyone understand how much $1 trillion is?
No, I don't actually.
Unfathomable. It is. I know I've said it a million times, but if you make $40,000 a year after taxes, you'd have to work for 25 million years to make $1 trillion. It is an unfathomable amount of money.
I don't actually understand what that means, but okay. A 3% income boost for the wealthy who do what? Like,
They do nothing. They had nothing.
exactly.
They had nothing to our world.
So it's like, where is the income boost for people who literally ensure that shit keeps running?
Thank you, JG.
Like, everybody from the fucking farmers to childcare to, I mean, it's like, these are the people that make things go round. It's just like, I can't.
You do agree.
It's so hard. Okay.
We need one of those stress balls.
The next one, though, is like words that I never thought would actually be strung together in like a legitimate political way, but here we are. $25 billion for a fantasy missile shield built by SpaceX. And if you, like me, are wondering what in the blue fuck a fantasy missile shield is, I am sorry, but I can't answer your question.
Trump selects $175 billion for the Golden Dome defense shield
This
design.
is $25 billion. Oh, maybe it's
yeah, I don't
okay.
know. I don't know. It could be the number of years, over a certain number of years. Oh yeah, so it's probably 25 billion per year over a certain number of years, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, does anyone else think Golden Dome is a type of condom? I would think so. The Golden Dome missile defense shield named a Space Force. He also named a Space Force general to head the program. And it's a giant giveaway to SpaceX. Oh, I think that's where the 25 comes from. It's 25 billion to SpaceX.
So this is like an Iron Dome situation.
Yes, but it's gold now. Do you understand the difference?
I do.
This one's gold.
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Because have you seen Trump's house? It's like the gaudiest shit you've ever seen. I'm not trying to be petty. I'm just saying, like, if everything's gold, it's like Christ on a cracker. Okay, so not surprising. $50 billion for a border wall.
Still trying to build that wall.
Still trying to build that wall, which has no actual legitimate effect on the number of people who come into this country, as evidenced by the past. If you look at the actual numbers, people still make it across with things like ladders. So, which only cost like $20.
There's a great moment from Trump when he was running the first time around, and he's in front of those giant crowd, and, as always, and he's like, I'm gonna build a big beautiful wall, and they're all going nuts. And he's like, there's gonna be no way anyone could get over it. And then he kind of mumbled. He goes, well, maybe a ladder. And then he keeps going, like he just like
that little glimmer of intelligence that hasn't actually just been suffocated by his dumb shittery.
I guess if they had a ladder, then all would be lost. But
yeah, it's called a ladder. Anywho,
or a catapult.
We need to bring back catapults.
We do.
I do wonder why they don't involve cats. Anyway, so 6.9 basically this adds $6.9 billion to the deficit. It's unclear how much the bonus pay is, but bonus pay for ICE agents, additional ICE prisons, and personnel. Because what we need is more Gestapo.
The more inequality you have, the more people are going to rise up and demand change. And so you deal with that by just more and more boots on the ground, more and more brown shirts.
Yeah, this is specifically ICE, but yes, I wouldn't be surprised if this is also, meant to increase the larger dome of the prison industrial complex, if you will. So now we get into where they're cutting. 60% cut to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau because why? Why bother?
Which is negative $5 billion. They also put, I think, they put someone in charge or fire people to basically make it so that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau doesn't function at all. Mm-hmm. And I had made the point as they were doing this that, it's not going to function, but it was barely doing anything anyway. It'd been completely defanged. from back, 2008 after the collapse when they created it. And it like, they were like, oh, we got billions of dollars for you. It's like, you got back some fees from banks. Like, they're not actually changing the way this capitalist structure exploits people.
They've also expanded coal mining and offshore drilling, which it cuts 20 billion from natural resources. They've rescinded $4 billion for green infrastructure, because why bother? A 5% pay cut for new federal workers who don't forfeit their union protections.
I know maybe it is illegal. I was going to say, you'd think that should be illegal. Trump does a lot of things where ultimately you find out they're illegal years later. But to say you have to not have union protection or else we're going to cut your pay, like, that sounds like extortion.
I mean, but isn't that what he does?
No, I know. I'm just seems like it should be. I mean, I guess everything he does should be illegal.
3.5 million people are going to lose SNAP benefits. SNAP is food stamps.
Food stamps. Because those people have really been just exploiting the system the way they've been able to survive.
Well, because I think the lesson that Israel has taught us, Lee, is that food is not necessary.
Yeah.
$1.4 million Pell Grant recipients lose funding worth 1.4 million Pell Grant recipients lose funding. That's the Education and Workforce Committee, which obviously millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people rely on that, those Pell Grants. And lastly, but certainly not leastly,
the cherry on top,
8.6 million people are going to lose Medicaid coverage, which means that
poorest people in the country
will die of shit that's totally avoidable and totally curable, but they will die because they don't have access to healthcare in the richest country in the world.
Medicaid, it's probably only the people not in America that wouldn't know this, but Medicaid is for the poorest amongst us. It's for people with disabilities. That's where they're getting this money. They're giving a giant tax break to the richest people in the fucking world. And at the same time, in order to try and scrape back some of that money, not nearly enough, but to scrape back some of that money, they are canceling health coverage for the poorest Americans. It's just remarkably repulsive. It is just the soul inside of Jabba the Hutt. If you took a big runny shit on it, like that is the what these people are made of. Can I at least get an amen or something? Thank you.
I'm sorry. I just had nothing to add. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Just trying to get an amen sometimes. Okay. Let's see. Are we done with that topic? Oh yeah. I want to show this brief clip of it's Margot Rubio. It says plenty of things in it that I disagree with, or he mischaracterizes them or whatever. There was a hearing of him in front of Congress. They dragged him in front of Congress. And but within this, if you listen, he admits that Syria is like weeks away from collapsing into all-out civil war, which the United States created this, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to think Assad was some wonderful person to think the United States helped and made sure to obliterate Syria, sanctioning them so that 94% of all Syrians were under the poverty line. So everyone's struggling. Everyone's having trouble finding food or housing. And now here we are. Now the ex-Al-Qaeda guy, I guess, well, when you're once Al-Qaeda, always Al-Qaeda. Let's say current Al-Qaeda guy running Syria. And anyway, here's Rubio admitting.
If you look at the history of the region, when Syria is unstable, the region becomes unstable.
Oh, well, who did that? Who made Syria unstable?
And this has certainly been true after the Arab Spring led to the Assad rebellion against Assad, and that really destabilized the entire region. And
he's not
blaming people for rising up.
Yeah, he's not mentioning that we helped fund it, we helped arm it, we put forward all kinds of propaganda, etc., to make sure that this would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned Syria, frankly, into a playground for jihadist groups, including ISIS and others that used it to operate and to destabilize their partners.
Everyone he could have listed: ISIS, Al Qaeda, Al Nusra, etc., funded and armed by either the U.S. or Israel.
So you have this change in December. In my view, which I've discussed with many of you individually, is the bad news is that the transitional authority figures, they didn't pass their background check with the FBI. Okay, they've got a tough.
Ha 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 ha! So funny. The transitional authority people. We helped launder the guy's image. HTS, is that right? We helped launder his we helped launder his image. We helped convert him from Al Nusra, a jihadist terrorist group, to he's wearing a suit. Now he's the head of Syria. He's acting like we didn't.
Well, I mean, Marco Rubio is just a fascist in a suit, so it's like you can put a suit on anything.
You totally put a suit on anything. That was well said. The Jabba the Hutt shit thing. You can put a suit on that.
There you go.
History and one that we understand. But on the flip side of it is, if we engage them, it may work out, it may not work out. If we did not engage them, it was guaranteed to not work out. In fact, it is our assessment that, frankly, the transitional authority, given the challenges they're facing, are maybe weeks, not many months, away from potential collapse and a full-scale civil war of epic proportions, basically the country splitting up.
Which, let me just say, works out really well for the natural resources land that we own in Syria.
Yeah, the fact that we own a third of Syria, we're still basically holding on to the oil fields, and we created this entire catastrophe. And he seems to be talking about it as if it's tornadoes. Like, tornadoes got worse. What you gonna do? There's no connection to us or me or any of it. It's like crazy. Thank you, JG, for more YouTube membership. JG really stepping up today. Really supporting the show. Thank you. Anyway, this is almost over.
The good news is that there is a Syrian national identity. It is one of the places in the Middle East where Alawis and Druze and Christians and Sunni and Shia have lived and Kurds have lived alongside each other underneath the banner of a Syrian identity until it was broken by a butcher, Assad, who pitted them against each other.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about yourself.
Yeah, I think he's the butcher. I think the U.S. is the butcher.
I was waiting for just like this remarkable moment of self-awareness.
It's like, and that's what we are. We're just a butcher that pitted him against each other. We fucking created this thing. Syria is collapsed because of us.
Also, I find it also really funny that you would dare talk about like how all these people can live together in one nation when a couple of things are true. That was always true in areas of the Middle East. And in fact, places where the caliphate moved up into Europe, including southern Spain. It was destroyed, drumroll please, by nation state building and colonialism and imperialism, i.e. the shit that you stand for, Marco Rubio. Also, let's talk about this beautiful idea of all the people living under one banner. Do you know that you're part of the government that's currently trying to uplift a white supremacist fascist state and get rid of anybody who isn't a white dude? Like, how dare you sit there and talk about how great that is when you are perpetuating the forced disappearance of people who actually you might be related to, you sick fuck. So it's like, it is so remarkable to me that he can sit there and talk about that shit. Oh my gosh, isn't it great that the Druze and the Christians, and when you are literally destroying that, not just in places like Syria, in the Levant, in the Middle East at large, but also here domestically. Like, how the fuck dare you? Also, he's wearing self-tanner. I bet your ass.
And his little plaque says the Honorable Marco Rubio.
You can always tell the self-tanner when the eyelids are a completely different color than the rest of the face.
Yeah. But Donald Trump has actually made it a requirement to work in his administration to have eyelids different color than your face.
So that he doesn't feel
he don't want to feel left. Yeah, he don't want to feel different. So thought we should spend a minute talking about what's going on in Syria there.
You always bring the stories that get me so riled up.
Those are the best moments. Don't you think?
To wind me up like a...
Don't you think they get you riled up? It's important. That means it's important. You don't get riled up. It's not like I'm bringing like, it rained a little more today and you start screaming and I'm like, ha, riled. It's because it's important shit.
I mean, the rain might be important with regards to climate change.
Yes, but I've never seen you get angry at the rain.
Depends on what's going on. If I left the washout, you're goddamn right.
All right. Weirdly, here's the segue. After I bring up the Orange Crocs and Idiocracy, Eleanor picks an article with Orange Crocs from Idiocracy.
I did not know that. I did not know that.
These are not the big goofy ones he was wearing in the movie, but similar.
And also, this is not like a feel-good story, but you don't come here for that. This is a story by Prism Reports. They do great reporting, so check them out at prismreports.org.
It's gonna sound like she's saying prison reports because it's about prisoners. But
prism, like a prism that you see light refracted through.
Refracted through. I like the well said.
You can work on that later. So, in custody, deaths remain mired in darkness. So, folks die in prison. That's probably not a. Did you want to answer that?
I was just gonna say thank you, JG.
Do you want to answer the question?
He's just saying, did you know that Richard Medhurst was from Syria?
No, I think he's saying, do you know Richard Medhurst from Syria? Like,
oh,
do you know
I know
the guy?
Richard? So he calls him Richard Medhurst from Syria?
Isn't that his full title?
That's a strange name.
Your name is Lee Camp from Richmond.
Yeah.
I prefer de Richmond.
I had a roommate.
Myself.
I had a roommate in college. One of several, but he would constantly Danny Katz, Boulder, Colorado. You always say Boulder, Colorado after his name, as if it was part of his name. Anyway,
so maybe this is maybe Richard Medhurst has that.
Maybe. Anyway, yes, I know Richard Medhurst. I've never met him in person, but we've had him each other on our shows, and I cover the fact that they're trying to prosecute him right now in the UK for speaking the truth.
And I think he also has a lot of, I mean, not just because he's part Syrian, but I think he also has like a really good analysis of what's going on there. So if y'all are interested, you should check out his work on Syria and just in general. Anywho, so this is basically a project that was launched by a law professor at Loyola University in New Orleans, it's called the Incarceration Transparency Project, and it started back in 2019 to track deaths in every prison, jail, and youth detention facility. Yes, because unexplained deaths happen at youth detention facilities.
Well, also the phrase youth detention facility should not exist.
No, it should not.
It shouldn't even exist.
So basically what he found, that there's a rise of preventable deaths, those that aren't due to, things like, oh, somebody was incarcerated with cancer. Although you could argue that that's preventable too, because they're not getting proper care in jails. And suicide is also, I would argue, preventable because, he's saying that those are, okay, drug overdoses and suicide are preventable deaths, not related to natural causes. For example, in September 2021, the Washington State Department of Corrections announced the elimination of disciplinary segregation, aka solitary confinement. But the agency still uses other forms of solitary confinement, including administrative segregation, which is like when you say that you're trying to keep people away from each other for, gang reasons or whatever, and max custody on vulnerable populations, sometimes for months or years at a time. So this is another one of those moments where you're like, hey, we stopped doing solitary confinement, but then you don't because there are all these loopholes, kind of like slavery entered in the United States, unless in the case of incarceration, in which case it didn't actually end, did it? You can't say we stopped doing the thing if you're still doing the thing. So, and of course, decades of research and studies show that solitary confinement leads to mental health issues and physical issues, and has links to self-harm and suicidal ideation.
It's torture. It's just straight up torture. And it's like we pretend as if it's not torture. What? Because you didn't literally stab someone in the face? It's still torture.
So a Reuters investigation found that jail deaths surged 35% between 2009 and 2019, despite the fact that the jail population decreased during that same period. Why? And obviously, there's a myriad of reasons for that. They're saying that, there's absolutely no oversight. Jails don't have, they're run on a hyper-local level by counties or sheriffs. So there's very little oversight. And this person points out, when you're in a jail, you're at the mercy of that facility and the people who run it. So they're basically only accountable to themselves. So, for instance, another story in this piece is about how somebody was beaten to death 24 hours after they were put in jail, and that's just, well,
And who do you go to? Like who?
Exactly. Well, who would you go to? You're dead, and the
you-
people who beat you to death are like,
Right.
well, I'm not going to tell on you.
Right, of course. And any witnesses are not going to do anything because it'll risk their time, how long they spend in prison. So it's like they literally in prison, they can beat you to death and there's nothing you can do.
And he points out, just like I did earlier, that when the officials use the term natural death, it's meant to suggest that we don't have to dig any deeper, but that's not accurate at all. A lot of these so-called natural deaths are very preventable because facilities don't provide adequate health care. I wonder if that's because the United States doesn't provide adequate health care. And I also just wanted to share a quote from a recent interview that I did with Maya Shenwar and Dr. Kim Wilson, who have a book called "We Grow the World Together" about abolition and caregiving. And they said,
this is a good time for us to hype your new Substack article.
But they said in the interview, the intensification of suffering that we're currently experiencing, the rise of fascism and all of the different things that we're seeing, all of the reproductive justice issues and all the rollbacks and erasure of all of these things, we can look at what has happened in prisons, and many people have been okay, absolutely okay with it happening to certain people.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a really important point, because not only do we not oftentimes not get information out of jails and prisons because we're not supposed to, but when we do, a lot of people just go, I mean, but they're bad people, right? That's why they're incarcerated.
Yeah.
As if it would be okay to torture and murder people because even if they've done terrible things, even if they've raped and murdered. It's like, are you saying that that people are disposable in this way, that they should be tortured and murdered? Are you pulling this eye for an eye bullshit? And if so, then what kind of world are we really building with that kind of perspective on things?
You can judge a society by how they treat the least amongst them.
Right.
So it's like the people in prison are the least in terms of rights, etc. So how do we treat the people in prison?
And this is kind of the crux of the abolitionist argument. The argument is not that you wouldn't deal with people who do things like rape and murder, but you would actually try to access the catalysts for this kind of behavior. And sometimes, right, there are like psychopaths that just enjoy killing
they run
animals
the
or
fucking
whatever.
government.
I know, but it's like we're not advocating that you should everyone should get a psychopath in their home if you're actually altruistic. It's like, that's not what this argument is about. This argument is about, at what point do you draw the line? Oh, if it's okay to torture someone who's killed someone, then where do you draw the line? What if they stole something? Right? What if they beat someone up? And what's the context around that situation? What if they're in jail because they smoked a plant? Right? It's like, where do you draw the line on when somebody should just be locked up and forgotten and subject to years of torture, whether that's solitary confinement or beatings or what have you? I mean, it really is a very sick and sadistic system. And I think it's really important to start to unpack that and recognize that, yeah, the shit that we're seeing happen now, where people are being kidnapped by ICE or disappeared by the CBP and things like that, it's because as a society, we've decided that, okay, well, certain people you can do this to. Well, then when they start rolling that back to the other people that you might think are a little icky or not as good as you, and then it gets rolled back another step and another step and another step until everybody has the target on their back and on their forehead. And so I think it's like really important to recognize this, and that the fact that nobody should, I mean, prisons as they exist should not exist. But also, if we are going to set up some kind of structure, people should not be disappeared and then murdered and with no oversight. It's absolutely absurd and atrocious.
Yeah, and our prison system is built for a certain kind of people. It is built to be racist, but it's also built for just the poor. I mean, if you are rich enough to have top-level lawyers, then the odds of you ending up in prison are essentially non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for the Harvey Weinstein is the exception that proves the rule. You can point to about 2 people that are in prison right now who are rich. It just doesn't happen. And part of that is because the system protects its own, which is the fellow rich. But part of it, but largely, it just has to do with, can you get those top-level lawyers? Because the top-level lawyers can drag your case into so much mud, even if you did the thing, assuming you did the thing, that nobody really rich ends up in prison. It just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's so. But although we want to tell everybody about Eleanor's article, which she just quoted from, which is up right now at Substack.
EleanorGoldfield.substack.com. It's called Lenses for Reality, on truths with a lowercase as opposed to capital T truth. So check that out.
Check that out. And also check out the new episode of Unredacted Tonight that just came out. In it, I dig into the truth behind the Oklahoma City bombing. It's been 30 years. Can you believe it? Since the Oklahoma City bombing. And we still are being incredibly lied to about it. And not only do I dig into it, but I also have on probably the person who has investigated Oklahoma City bombing more than anyone in the world. She lost 2 grandsons in the bombing, and she has spent the entire 30 years since doing almost nothing except trying to figure out what really happened that day. And anyway, I think it's a pretty good episode, so I'd love for you to check it out. You can get there at leecamp.com/unredacted. We'll take you to the entire Unredacted playlist.
And check out Project Censored. You can go to projectcensored.org and click on the radio tab. You can check it out wherever you listen to podcasts.
And the last thing I want to say is, if you can help me out, I've started a new YouTube channel that is only unredacted videos. And I'm hoping to get that to 1,000 subscribers fairly quickly. So that's leecamp.com/YouTube. We'll take you straight to that new page. The main page is going to stay exactly the same, so don't worry about that. But please go over there, click subscribe, click the bell icon, change it to all alerts. And thanks a lot. And I will see you Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern.
I will see you Friday.
And have a great weekend and keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.